What's up, guys? So summertime can be one of the more difficult times of the year to catch fish, but it can also be one of the most rewarding times to catch fish. And wouldn't you say that fishing from a boat in a big lake is quite a bit different from fishing from shore in a smaller body of water?
Yes, totally different.
So today, Griff and I are going to share our ideas and our experience, since I've spent most of my time fishing from a boat and you spend a ton of time fishing from the shore.
Yes.
So we are going to share with you our favorite summertime baits and presentations so that hopefully you guys can catch more fish. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it, guys. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Deps, Lucky Craft, Jackall, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard to find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. Welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, aka the Tackle Otaku, being joined by my buddy Griff, aka G Sticks Bespoke on Instagram. We're also being filmed by our friend Jeffrey the King. We are the Hookup Tackle USA. Today we're going to break down some summertime baits. This is going to be fun because I just glanced at your pile there. We had no planning in this. Your pile is completely different.
Yeah, I was looking over there. They're not the same.
Yeah, so this will be hopefully insightful and interesting. And, you know, every body of water fishes totally different, period. But in the summertime especially, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say? So, you know, take what we are sharing with you and apply it to your fisheries. What Griff talks about may be more similar to what you guys are going to experience. What I talk about may be more similar. And then by all means, at the end of this, share whatever info you guys have, because the goal here is just to make one strong community we can all share together and we can all catch more fish. So let's jump in. So summertime, you know, we are in hell basically, right? Summertime for us, we're talking, you know, air temperatures, you know, 100 degrees at the coldest. Like usually if we're out, you know, night fishing or we're out at crack of dawn, it's 100 and something, right? And it can be warming into, you know, 120. So, you know, water temps are getting up, you know, high 80s, low 90s. It's just hot, right? And so what happens when the fish get that hot, right? Their metabolism does crazy things. It's kind of similar to us, where when you just get super hot, you know, there are little moments where you get juice and you're like, yeah, it's warm, right? But for most of the day, you're kind of just like, ugh, it's hot, you know, especially like when we're humping back there in the warehouse, like by the end of the day, we're whipped.
Box.
Yeah. So, you know, the bass are very similar. They're going to do, you know, kind of the same things that we're doing, right? So you got to find these little windows of, you know, peak feeding times, or you got to find ways to just present something that just they can't resist it, so they take it, right? So for me, when I'm approaching summertime fishing, I basically kind of break it down top, middle, bottom, and I want to catch all the fish on top.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes if that's not happening, I can get them to go in the middle, but most of the time they're at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? And really the reason for that is it's the most stable down there. A lot of times they can get below the thermocline and be in relatively cooler temperatures. There's more shade, there's less light penetration. It's kind of like, you know, if we get a chance to just go chill on our air-conditioned couch, we're probably going to do that instead of just like sitting outside.
Yeah.
Right? So that's basically how I approach it. Where I want to fish, where I try to fish if that's not happening, and then where I'm probably gonna end up fishing.
Yeah.
Do you approach it the same way, or how do you look at it?
So I'm just gonna skip the middle. I'm gonna go for top and then straight to the bottom.
Top and bottom.
Yeah.
And do you feel that it's like that because you're fishing smaller bodies of water, or is that just your approach to that?
Well, a lot of places that I fish, there is really no middle because I'm fishing in that, like, you know, from top to 4 feet.
Okay. So it's just shallower water in general.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go from top, and once my top water stuff dies off, or if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna go to the bottom, and then I'm gonna go to find shade on the bottom.
Okay.
Not just necessarily fishing the bottom. Because it's so shallow, I don't have that thermocline option.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to find different places on the bottom that they may be relating to.
Yeah.
Different ways to find them.
Yes.
All right, cool. So let's start at top then, since we both have top. So, you know, obviously, if you can catch fish on topwater, that's, you know, that's the greatest thing ever, right? And what we find pretty much everywhere in the country that we go is summer is a great time for bass to basically get in groups, get in schools, and they will chase schools of bait. They will crash them on the surface. Sometimes it's very short-lived. It's just little bursts here and there. Sometimes it'll go all day. But it's a time where if you can find them really aggressive, you can get them to eat full-size baits, bigger baits. So for me, since I'm fishing more, you know, lakes and open water, my starting point is pretty much always the Teckel Kicknocker. And I talk about this in a lot of videos. This is basically my go-to topwater bait. The reason why I like the Kicknocker is because I can move it fast, I can move it slow, I can move it in wide movements, tight movements, but it's just got a really loud sound, right? So it calls fish to it. Even if the fish are deep, they will come up and crush this thing. I keep my colors pretty simple, usually a white and then like a shad type pattern, pretty simple. This is always my starting point. When the fish get picky, right? So sometimes they'll get picky on bait size, sometimes they'll just see so many topwater baits, they've seen the same bait over and over and over again. This is the time of the year that I start adding in silent topwater as well. So this is the silent topwater that I usually switch to. This is the Dog X Diamante from Megabass. This is the silent version. And so the difference basically is you get the same type of profile, right, that you would, only one's gonna have that really loud sound, and one's basically gonna have no sound. Right? So this guy, when you move it, you got to work it a little bit harder, give it a little more aggressive pull and twitch. It's going to kind of pop and spit, and it'll create a little bubble trail, but it won't have any sound to it. So it's not going to be, you know, scary or intrusive to them. It's just going to be a bait moving and walking across the surface that looks very natural. So when they get kind of spooked or lethargic, sometimes the silent can squeeze a lot of bites out. And this is the time of the year over the next few months that the silent topwater is really critical to have in the arsenal. So there's my starting point. I would say 100% of the time in the summer. These are always tied on. This is where I'm always going. What are you doing?
So I'm going with a frog. So, and I'm gonna go with a bigger bodied frog because I feel the same way. I feel like the fish are gonna eat bigger stuff because first thing in the morning when I'm throwing the frog, I feel like the fish are gonna take advantage of the bigger meals before it starts to heat up. So they're gonna come, they're gonna eat the bigger meals, and then after that they're gonna kind of go chill out. So I'm gonna try to get the biggest fish on the biggest bait possible. So I like to throw the Gavacho is always gonna be tied on for me first thing in the morning. And if I notice that they're being super aggressive about it, I'll tie on the Big Gabot because it's just a more aggressive frog, and that's where I'll start off in the morning. And this is where I'll stop with my topwater. It's just gonna be frogs for me all summer long.
Okay.
Topwater.
Are you fishing around more snags, more grass, or do you just have so much confidence, even if it's open water, that the frog is gonna be a ticket for you?
So I'm gonna throw my frog around like overhanging trees, and any lay down that I see, no matter where it is in the water, I'm gonna throw the frog at it.
Okay, so you're kind of approaching it as a shade type deal. The bass are going to be in that lay down, they're going to be in that tree, they're going to be in the thick stuff, and
Yeah.
this gives you a chance to put it in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably like the coolest water that's there, so they can just relax a little until they want to eat, and then because that's where all the bait's going to be.
So you're making target specific presentations.
Yes.
And I'm making more just like long casts or chasing down boils. Like I may be living on my trolling motor running around trying to find that pod or that pod, and you're really picking things apart.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of opportunities to cover water because I'm just standing in the same spot. And some of the places I fish, I could move 15 feet and then that's it. So I gotta try to hit every single spot and work each one of them thoroughly before I move on.
And just super pick it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So there's a great kind of 1-2 idea.
Yeah.
You know, if you're fishing from a big lake, you could certainly incorporate the frog. If you're fishing around a lot of grass and toolies, and that would definitely be something that I would add in my arsenal. Same thing, you could add some of these walking topwater baits if you're fishing from shore in more of an open area where you don't have those specific,
oh yeah, definitely,
you know, type targets as well. So, you know, they will both cross over depending on, you know, the fisheries that you guys are fishing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so from here, if I don't get bit, right, then normally I know it's time to go to the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's times, especially when they're chasing bait, that I will try to get them in that mid column. So sometimes they just won't commit to that topwater bait, and so I will drop just below and fish that next few foot column. And this is especially effective when they're really juiced on chasing, you know, shad, herring, any type of like open water fish. That's when I will drop down and throw a jerkbait. Now, I will do a combination of hard and soft, but this is the time of the year that I will spend a lot of time throwing the soft jerkbait. So, and what's funny is, you know, fluke style baits and that kind of stuff get a lot of use early in the season, like pre-spawn when they first move up, because it's a bait that you can just really finessey, just kind of twitch, and it just kind of dives and moves. But I don't ever use a fluke like that. So I use it burning. So same thing with a hard jerk bait. So you're gonna go with a hard jerk bait. Something like an Ito Shiner is usually my starting point. I want it to be aggressive and fast, right? So when I twitch it, I want it to move side by side. I want it to be loud. I want it to have a lot of movement to it, to where it's moving. This is something that maybe I will throw, you know, on a morning where I get out there and it's really windy. There's a lot of sound. This would be a great thing to throw. The Sakamata shad is one that I've added to my arsenal recently, and it's a bait that I have absolutely fallen in love with. So for me, the Sakamata shad and the Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper, those are the two soft plastics that live on my rods during the summer, because you can fish these baits really aggressively with twitches and just have it just keep darting, or you can just literally burn them in. And the Sakamata shad is soft enough, and same with the Skinny Dipper, that it has these really tight movements and it just looks like a bait that's fleeing away that gets really aggressive strikes. So for me, when they're schooling, they won't commit to the top water. I just drop down to something like this and it'll pick up extra fish for me. So definitely check those out. You totally skipped this column.
Yeah, I'm just going straight down to the bottom.
All right, well give me where you start then. What do you switch to?
Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the jig.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start with a football style jig, something that I can drag. I'm gonna go to that sparse cover because they should still be out feeding, but those schoolers that I'm seeing are normally like super small fish in my areas, so all the bigger ones are just sitting underneath. So I'm gonna go to a football jig.
Okay.
I'm gonna cast it out there to the same type areas that I'm throwing the frog, but now I'm just going down. And then I'm just gonna drag them out. I'm not gonna drag them all the way across the river. I'm gonna drag it 10-15 feet. I'm gonna reel it in and make another cast.
So specific targeted casts again.
Yes.
But you're looking for the same shit, the laydowns, the big trees, places that have the shade.
Yes.
Okay.
So once I figure out that they're not hitting there, I automatically know that they're in that deeper cover.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna switch to a flipping or casting style jig.
Okay.
All right.
So you use the football jig in the shallower stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you use the flipping and casting style jig in the deeper stuff.
Yeah, where there's more cover. Like if I see like brush, like thick brush.
So more thick.
Yeah.
So football jig for thinner cover, casting or flipping style for the thicker cover, just
Yeah.
to get a little better weed or cover resistance, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So, and then this one I'm gonna fish the same way. Not gonna do as long of a cast. So I'm gonna find stuff that's closer to the bank. I'm gonna flip in, give it 1 or 2 lifts and drops, and then I'm coming out and recasting.
And are you putting a trailer? So I see you've got the Imakatsu jig, you've got the OSP Jig Zero One.
Yes.
Are you adding a trailer to these, or
Yes.
what are you doing? Okay.
So the only trailer that I use on my jig is the OSP Dolive Craw. Since we started carrying these have been my go-to on a jig.
Okay.
It's the best craw representation that I've found, and it doesn't get stuck on cover. The claws are pretty thick.
So it kind of just comes through without hanging up.
Yeah, so it's not gonna wrap around anything, it's just gonna bounce off.
Okay.
So I found that. So depending on how I want to do it, I just use the 3 and the 4 inch.
Okay.
And I'm pretty basic with my colors. I'm gonna go anything in a dark brown, black and blue, or green pumpkin.
Okay.
And all my trailers are gonna be green pumpkin.
Okay, so staying in the darker tones.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just keep it simple.
So I also throw a lot of jigs, okay? I go the opposite way. And what's funny is I love fishing. Like a football jig is like one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
But I find that on the bigger lakes, for me, I catch them way better on a swim jig in the summer than I do on the dragging style. So for me, like this is something that's always on my deck, and this is basically a heavy swim jig with a paddle tail swim bait. So this is the OSP Weed Rider. I like this one because it comes in a 5/8 ounce. I'm a sucker for 5/8 ounce because I feel like 5/8 ounce is heavy enough to where I can throw it out and let it sink down into, 25, 30, 35 feet if I need to fish it deep. But it's a light enough size to where if the fish are shallower, I can fish it shallow, but I can fish it fast and just keep it moving. So I almost always have it tipped with a 4.5 inch paddle tail. That's kind of like the magic size. For me, in the summer, it's either an OSP Dolive Shad, which is what I have on this one, right? So the OSP Dolive Shad, or it's a Keitech. It's one of those two. I feel like in the summer, they want the bait to have more movement. So, this is usually when I start retiring my, Megabass Spark Shads and some of those really tighter moving swim baits. And then I switch over to the Keitech or the Dolive Shad, something that's got more movement just to give more life down there. And then as the summer finishes and we get back into cooler temps, then I usually bring those tighter moving, Spark Shads and stuff back into my lineup. No right or wrong, use whatever it is they're gonna eat. This is just my experience. But typically I'll throw this both shallow and deep. It's just a really versatile bait. If the fish are staying shallow because there's lots of bait, I can throw this through the brush, I can run bank with it and just fish it like I would a normal spinner bait. And then I could turn the corner and I could fire one off a point, let it sink down, drag it a little bit deeper. It's just a great way for me to still fish fast, but deep and more on the bottom where they are. So that's usually my jig spot.
Okay.
And we could easily, trade.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't throw this in those laydowns where you're fishing, and no reason I couldn't take that football jig and throw it off the deeper stuff. They could definitely transfer.
Oh, yeah.
But there's just so many damn options. Like, you got to pick something that you have confidence in and roll with it.
Well,
right?
confidence is a big thing.
Yep.
And then also, I want to throw the bait that I'm going to have the most fun throwing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't like to get bit on a football jig?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an amazing
Maybe people
bite.
that have never been bit on a football jig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
that's it. I think.
It's an amazing bite.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like a soft tap, but they're gonna hit it. They're gonna you're gonna know the fish is there every single time, and then you get to lay down a super hook set on it. Like that's just fun.
It's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some jig options for you guys for the summer. All would transfer across big lakes, small lakes, river systems. So
Yeah.
All right. So where do you go? Where do you go from there then?
Once I'm done with the jig and I know that the fish are done with the active feeding, I'm gonna go strictly into the heaviest cover that I can find.
Okay.
And that's gonna be with a beaver.
Okay. Now are we talking about like flipping, pitching?
Yeah.
Like you're just putting the shit in there and.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the stuff that most people are scared to throw into because that's where the fish are gonna be. They're gonna find shade, they're gonna find cover, they're gonna find safety, and that's where they're gonna be.
Okay.
And I'm gonna use all the beavers, the sweet beaver and the Smallie beaver. So sometimes they're not gonna eat the bigger one, so I'm gonna have them all on hand.
Okay.
But
You like the sweet beaver more than say like the spicy beaver or the man bear pig or a brush hog or something that's got a lot of movement to it. You like that more just natural flow of a beaver?
Yeah, so I'm gonna use this one because it's not very aggressive, and it just seems like the more aggressive you go when they're just trying to chill out, the less bites that I'm getting.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do something less aggressive, try to put it right in their face, try to get it to fly right by them, and then create like a reaction style bait with a soft plastic.
Cool. And what are you, I'm assuming you're just rigging it like Texas rig, traditional Texas rig?
Yeah.
And just adjust your weight size based on the cover?
Yeah. I'm always gonna start with 3/8, and then if I can get it in there with 3/8, I'll stick with that. And then if I need to go heavier, then obviously adjust heavier.
Bump it up from there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I also go to a soft plastic is usually my next step. For me on the big lakes, it's not as much fun as what you're having. But this is like I need to catch some fucking bass.
Okay.
Right? So for us out here, it's hard to beat a drop shot. And we talk about it all the time. Like there's times where it may not be the funnest way to catch them, but they just love a worm in the summer. So for me, I've always got, a worm ready. I do a combination of straight tail and curly tail. There are times when the fish get more aggressive and they're really juiced, especially when they're schooled, I find. So if you find a piece of structure and there's a bunch of them down there, I find that they really react to a curly tail. So for me, the Megabass Kemuri curly is one that we throw a lot. The Roboworm curly tail is one that we throw a lot. But there's something about that curly tail, just that little movement, that little extra bit, will sometimes get more triggers than just a straight tail. If I find that the fish aren't really schooled up and I'm just picking a fish up here, a fish up there, and it's more specific casting, then I usually stay with like a straight tail worm. The Dolive Crawlers kind of become my go-to for the drop shot, but straight tail Roboworm is another one that we've thrown forever. So one of those two would be good. Something in basically a 4.5 to 6 inch size seems to be perfect on those. But typically like a 10 to 12 inch leader, just something I can just keep just off the bottom, more in the fish's face. I'm fishing it aggressive. So I'm not throwing the drop shot out there and just like, it's not like winter drop shot where it's just soaking down there. We're throwing it out there and I'm literally just kind of dragging it through and it's just kind of pulling just off the bottom. And then when I'm done with my drag, I just stop, just kind of wind the slack in and just kind of drag it back through. So it's a rather quick fish, right? So it's not as boring as like wintertime drop shot.
Yeah.
Right? But lighter line, 6 pound, 7 pound for sure, but those are great baits for any big water. If you're just struggling to catch them, put a drop shot on, do a combination of the curly tail and straight tail, you'll definitely catch them. I'm sure you could jack them on the drop shot where you're fishing too.
Well, the drop shot definitely works. There's a lot of people that go out there and fish the drop shot, but if I don't have to, I'm not going to.
Because it's way more fun to catch them flipping.
Yeah.
Right.
I keep on saying this, but you got to have a good time.
100%.
Like you're not out there. I'm not fishing a pro tournament or anything like that. I'm just fishing, so I don't have to catch the fish. But
this is true.
I'm out there to have a good time.
Right.
Yeah. So if I feel like I need to catch a fish, I could throw a drop shot on there and almost instantly I'll probably catch a fish. It's one of the most effective techniques out there.
Yeah. But the nice thing about fishing some of the smaller waters is they don't have the ability to just swim out there to 40, 50, 60 feet. Because there's times, like right now, if we were going to go out fishing right now to Pleasant or something, dude, we're probably throwing one of these in 50, 60 feet.
Yeah.
Right? So as much as I would love to go flip and punch, those fish are way the hell down there.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one of the advantages of fishing smaller waters is they don't have that ability. So you can find them in the shallower stuff.
Yeah.
And have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just making small adjustments and not the huge adjustments.
Right.
Because they really don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have one more?
I have one more.
Okay, let's talk about it.
So when the bite's just super tough, so this would be like my drop shot of the river that I go to a lot.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna throw a weighted wacky worm.
Easy.
Yeah, it's gonna, I'm gonna fish it really slow.
Okay.
I'm gonna put my weight on there. I'm gonna try to cast it to the opposite bank, and then I'm just gonna shake it on the bottom. And this one I will work almost all the way back. This is super slow. It's when the fish aren't really biting. But I feel like with like a 5-inch Senko, that I'm gonna get a bigger bite than if I throw a drop shot.
Okay.
Yeah. So super subtle movements on the bottom. I'll drag it a little, shake it a little, take a nap, go back to it.
Yeah,
you know
you sound bored just talking about it, honestly.
It's not the most exciting thing, but you're gonna catch good fish doing it.
Okay.
And if I'm not catching fish when I get here, I'm just going home.
You're going home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is your Hail Mary. This is like everything else has failed. I need to catch one.
Yep.
This is where you go.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Cool. I have one more as well. Now this is my favorite way to catch big ones.
Okay.
But it doesn't always work, right? So that's why it's kind of like my Hail Mary, unless they're just chewing it. And sometimes they do, especially when there's like ledges and stuff, but that's a deep crank. So deep crank in the summertime, the deep crank was really built for summer fishing. It's an amazing way to catch giants in the summer, especially if they're set up on that like 20 to 25 foot zone, either on rock piles, ends of points, ledge breaks, flat breaks, ditches, anything like that. The deep crank's amazing. The Big-M 7.5 is usually my starting point. You know, I'll throw other baits too, like an 8XD or something like that. But really what I'm looking for is I'm looking for that big bait to get down there, and I just want to bang it around every rock I can find, bang it around every piece of structure I can find, and just let it get down there and make a lot of noise. You know, just hit everything, bang everything. And sometimes those fish they just can't stand it, right? It's so much movement, it's moving so fast that even if they're not juiced, they're more lethargic, they eat it and attack it. So I like the Big-M 7.5 because it can get down really deep. It easily gets to 20-25 feet on heavy line, and it's a flashing bait instead of a really wide wobbling bait. So it's a very easy bait to throw. It doesn't wear you out. And you know, I keep colors simple, right? So, you know, baby bass, shads, you know, craws, just depending on what it is that they're feeding on. I think color is less important in the summer. I think angle and retrieve, I want to make sure I'm bringing it through so that it's banging around in the juiciest spot that they are, right? This isn't something that I'm just kind of flailing into the middle and hoping something's down there. I'm picking it apart the same way I would pick it apart with the drop shot, or you'd pick it apart with the jig, right? You're really trying to find the juice. You're trying to find exactly where they're laying. And then I want this bait to basically be right through the fish to where when it hits something, the fish doesn't have an opportunity to move out of the way. I know where the fish is positioned, and this is going to come right to them, and they're going to get it. So, you know, when they eat the big crank, it's a no-brainer. You probably can't throw the deep crank.
No.
Well, you probably can. You're going to lose a lot of them.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's going to make like half a turn, and it's going to be snagged down there.
Even the Big-M 2.0,
yeah,
which is a fun bait to throw, it still dives too deep for where I fish.
For where you're fishing.
Yeah.
It's just you're fishing that super shallow water, which a lot of our audience is going to be fishing that same stuff with you.
Yeah.
Even if their lakes aren't or rivers aren't super shallow, they have so much weed growth this time of the year that it's impossible to get something to really dig down. But if you're fishing more open water, like what I'm doing a lot of, the deep crank can really be an amazing option in the summer. So definitely worth checking out the crank. All right, guys, well, that is a wrap. Thanks for sharing the insight. It's funny how different, you know, I mean, we fish together all the time, and we have very different mindsets and approaches to all of this. And that's, I think, what's so fun about fishing is there's not a right and a wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're not catching them, it's wrong, right? And if you're catching them and having a good time, it's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully that was insightful for you guys. If you have any questions on anything that we covered, definitely drop us a question down below in the comments, and we will get to it. Jeff will leave links to all these products as well, so you want to check any of them out closer. And again, please share with us, share with the community, you know, what is working for you guys in the summer. Like we said in the beginning, it's a tough time of the year to figure out. It's hot, but when you tap into it, it can be some of the best fishing and some of the biggest fish of the year. So get out there on the water. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching. Thanks for the support. Thank you for the business. And we will see you on the next one. So peace out.
Where was the Ned rig, Griff?
It's on the wall.
It's at the very bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was like your go-to in the summertime.
It's definitely not my go-to ever.
He's such a Ned rig hater.
I'm
this
not a
guy.
Ned rig hater. I don't need it. I don't need a Ned rig.
Do you hate the Ned rig?
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, so you are a Ned rig hater. That's the definition of hater.
Yeah.